Well, this is Sondre Skollevoll from Moron Police, and you're here with Sonic Perspectives.
There's some great music coming out of Norway this month, including new albums from bands with the initials MP. Magic Pie is one, and the other is Moron Police. Their third album, A Boat on the Sea, is out on the 16th, and it features a variety of styles and sounds, highlighted by some excellent musicianship and intriguing lyrics. I'm Mark Boardman, contributor to Sonic Perspectives, and I'm talking with Sondre Skollevoll, the man who is Moron Police. I don't know if that means he's the moron or the police, but he is a multi-instrumentalist, singer, composer, writer, arranger, and head crazy man of this self-styled weird band from Norway. Sondre, welcome to Sonic Perspectives.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
The first question that everybody hit me with when I mentioned I was talking to you, where the heck did that name come from? Moron Police.
Well, it's a juvenile name, I guess. It was me and the drummer. We basically grew up together, and at some point there was a sort of like a military depot sale thingy, and they sold these helmets with an MP on it, right, for military police.
Right.
And they were cheap, so we bought one or two, and for some reason, a friend of ours was working at a gas station, and we sort of stormed in there and just shouted, "Watch out, it's the Moron Police." And it sort of just stuck. It's not a great name, but it's the one we went for, and we sort of can't change it now. And it's grown on me as well. It's fine.
Now, I think I've seen one of those helmets being worn in a video, haven't I?
Yeah, those exact helmets that we bought, we used to wear them a lot. But at the time I had hair. I'm bald now. And it would get really, really hot because I had a lot of hair. And so we would ditch them after a while. Also, it made us look like, a male reproduction organ. So that's one of the other reasons we dropped them.
Yeah, you don't want to look like that on stage. It's certainly not too alluring.
No. I also always wore a kilt live, and I used to not have anything under there, but we jump around on stage a lot, and that was also you don't want to show too much.
But what have you gone to? Just a basic, I'll wear my jeans and my t-shirt look now?
No. Right now we're doing like sort of a Hawaiian look, almost like a Californian beach bum sort of thing, like Californian shirts and shorts. We still jump around a lot, so it gets really hot. So you need that ventilation to get it.
Sure. The Norwegian beach boys. I can see it now.
I'm from the south. There's beautiful weather, and there's long beaches, and you name it, we got it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So how did the band originally come together?
Well, it was sort of I had an older band when I was like 14 until 16, about there, called Skyblazer, which was a cheesy name, but it was called that because of a Super Nintendo game where I really loved the game music when I was a kid, still do. And when that sort of petered out, I made all of these songs that were a lot heavier, and me and the drummer, we sort of like, we want to do this, and I played in another band called Jucht, which means deer, and the guy who made those songs offered to join as a bassist, and that's sort of how it started. It was just for fun, really. We started playing some gigs, and just in a very small town where we're from, very small, and people seemed to like it, so we just, continued doing it.
How did you get from that point, though, of sort of just a garage band playing for fun, doing some gigs, to, say, putting out that the first album, The Propaganda Machine?
Well, basically just doing that, just doing gigs mostly around like local towns, Kristiansand, which is the nearest like big town for us, and sort of like creating a buzz, and also because I've done recording since I was a kid, I really like recording stuff. I can't make it sound very well, but I like hearing the songs that I make recorded. And so the dream was always just, I gotta record my songs professionally. And so that was sort of the motivation to get it out there. I never thought anybody would really like it, but there were some people who liked it. We did play with an orchestra in Kristiansand. That was cool. Mm-hmm. So they liked it. That was nice. Are you hearing any clacking? Because the vocalist in Major Parkinson is in there playing keyboards like a madman.
No, I'm not really hearing that.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So early on, you must have been doing more than just covers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I've been writing songs since I was about 12. And so the reason we started Moron Police is because really these songs didn't fit with the other band, right? They were a lot heavier. But we did do some covers, but we never really did, we're never a cover band. I've never been in a cover band. I played covers. We used to play, a South Park song called, the one about the chocolate salty balls.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, we did that one. We did some other stuff. We did some Norwegian folk songs at some point as well. But yeah, it was just, I've never been a cover song kind of guy. Sometimes we do, but it's never been like my calling.
Mm-hmm.
I play in such a weird tuning on my guitar that I can't play blues with like a band or jam out with other people. I can only play in one tuning at a time because it's an open C and it doesn't really work well with other people unless it's your own compositions.
Yeah, sure. So who were your influences when you started off?
Well, I was listening to a lot of power metal, really. I was still am a huge fan of power metal. Then I discovered Dream Theater, and I was sort of ashamed for liking power metal. But now I'm sort of back at, I fucking love power metal, sorry for swearing. But I don't really know who my influences are. Usually I will say Nobuo Uematsu, Hiroki Kikuta, David Wise, and Kui Kondo, who are all game music composers.
Yeah, I was going to say there does seem to be that influence.
But when I usually say that, people just, who are those people? A lot of people told us we sounded like Primus, and I've never listened to Primus. Now I have a little bit, but it was never before, really. And there were some Faith No More things, which is the least favorite project that I have of Mike Patton.
Mm-hmm.
Also Mr. Bungle, but I hadn't heard Mr. Bungle either. But then I heard Mr. Bungle and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to influences, it's hard. I mean, there's definitely bands that I've heard and listened to have influenced me somehow, but it's more unconsciously, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When I write songs, I don't sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write a song that sounds like this and this. They just sort of fall from the sky. And,
sure.
You know.
Some people, and I agreed with them, told me when they listened to some of your stuff, they heard some Frank Zappa influences. Have you ever listened to much of Frank?
I have now. At the time, I had definitely heard some Frank Zappa, but it was too weird for me. It was just, I like Bobby Brown and that sort of stuff, and Peaches and Legale. My dad had the Strictly Commercial sort of CD, had like a best of sort of that, mm-hmm. which is more, listenable. And I like that, but no, I hadn't heard much Frank Zappa, especially not like the weird stuff, which is most of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But now I'm a huge Frank Zappa fan.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly like the apostrophe and one size fits all, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Some stuff from Shake Your Booty and all. Frank Zappa is it's wonderful if people hear that. That's more than a compliment to me. I mean, that's great.
So
makes me happy.
How old were you when Propaganda Machine came out?
Like, my memory is not very good. It came out in 2012.
Yeah.
And I'm 30 now, so, and I'm also very bad at math. Let me.
I think that would make you 23.
Yes, that's what Lars says in New York. So that's probably right. So I was 23, and that means I think I wrote most of those songs when I was between 18 17 to 20 maybe. It took a long time because it's expensive to record, and we didn't have any money, and we were not really working, so we couldn't really pay for it ourselves. So it was a slow process. And also there was a year delay because the initial mixes were terrible. The album doesn't sound that great now, but it was a hell of a lot better than it was.
Okay.
So there was an added year there.
Some of the song titles, I was going to say they're sort of sophomoric in a way, which I guess they sort of are. It's an attempt to be funny and shocky and a whole lot of different stuff.
I mean, yeah. You're talking about the song title specifically, or the lyric?
Yeah, I mean, like Charlie's Enormous Mouth and Omnivorous Sexosaurus and Who's That Chicken?
Yeah. Well, I usually say that, like, for example, Who's That Chicken? It's I had an aunt who's dead now. She had my grandmother gave birth to her when she had is this the measles, right?
Yes.
And so she was born deaf, and she had some mental issues and stuff like that. And it was sort of about how the mental health system in Norway had treated her, which was not necessarily with a lot of respect. And, when I was 16, 17, I didn't really know how to form sort of that anger whatever I felt in like a very cohesive way. That was always sort of my intention with that song. Charlie's Enormous Mouth, I don't really know where that came from. Of course, it's a Frank Zappa song. Yep. So I think maybe it was the bassist who is the other bassist, was a lot older than us. And he was a big Zappa fan. So I'm pretty sure, I would assume he came up with it. The lyrics are about suicide, again, which has happened a lot in my family and friends and stuff like that. So Charlie's Enormous Mouth is a reference to a gun, right, called Charlie, and it's the the mouth of the gun,
right,
which is like sort of endearing to the person singing the song, and more endearing as the song goes on. So there are thoughts behind these lyrics, but I've used a lot of metaphors that only I get. And so, I'm not making it easy for anybody else to sort of like, oh, that's what he's singing about. Yeah, so I don't blame people for thinking it's just gibberish.
Right. Although in a couple of cases, maybe it is just gibberish.
Yeah. It does happen. I mean, sort of like the vocal scatting, and for example, Charlie's Enormous Mouth. Yeah, that's just what feels right. So, yeah.
You mentioned a couple of the topics that are there, and a couple of other songs. You talk about Norway making military weapons, shipping out lots of military weapons. There are other topics. Are you an angry guy?
No, not at all. I've had more politically inclined periods of my life, but generally I'm a pretty mellow dude. The music I make often comes out really happy, even though I could be angry about some certain things. When it comes to the thing with Norway, I just think it's sort of hypocritical that we're known as this sort of, peaceful country, tries to broker peace between everybody, and at the same time we're producing all these guns, and especially drones. And of course Norway's defense of that is that we don't actually, there's a drone factory right next to where I live. I was really surprised to know that, but we don't sell armored drones. We sell all the parts, especially to the United States, and the United States then puts the guns on them and then use them wherever they are. And so it's just I was surprised to find that out. Yeah, of course I can't really change it, so I'm not like angry about it, but it sort of pisses me off. Of course it does. It doesn't seem right, but what can you do? You're just a stupid musician in a band called Moron Police. So,
well, I don't know. That gives you a voice.
Yeah, that's a voice. That's something.
One that certainly some people are going to listen to, even if they can't figure out all the metaphors.
I think that one, if you're talking about the song Blue Skies, especially, that one is not that obscure, I would say.
No.
I think especially with the last part, I think you can piece together what that one's about. Some of the earlier songs, especially from Propaganda Machine, maybe even Defenders, are more obscure, even though their intentions are there. And I think maybe with the new album, I maybe dialed it back a little bit, just because, like, well, it's nice to have something to say, but maybe you should just, like, say it and not pack it into, make it sound like hyper or something when it's really not. It's a simple message. I don't know. I can't really remember my thought process at the time. It's been a while.
Well, you mentioned that the second album, Defenders, came out in, 2014, so it was a couple years after the first album came out.
Yeah.
And you can certainly hear the difference. From a production sound point, it's a lot bigger. While there's still metal, it's almost an arena metal sound to it. It's much wider and bigger and jumps out and hits you harder, I think.
It's more guitars. That one, it was the guy who mixed it. I mixed it with him. He's now the bassist in Moron Police. He's a good friend of ours. And so we wanted to do it ourselves because of budget and stuff like that, but also because he's a great guy and he knows what he's doing. But so we just went the extra mile. We recorded the drums very well in a good studio, and then we did the rest ourselves, from everything from tracking and guitars and all that. But we had good equipment, and we quad tracked the guitars, as opposed to the first album where it's just two guitars, one left, one right. On Defenders, it's four guitars playing the same thing of every heavy riff, and it's and all the sounds are really, really heavy, and combined it sounds devastating.
It does, very much.
Maybe a bit too much. We might have gone a little bit overboard on the drums as well. We just really wanted it to sound powerful. And listening back, I really like the sound of that album, but listening back, it's we might have gone a little bit overboard here and there. The song Steve Jobs is Dead But I'm Not is especially brutal.
Yeah, a bit. But I would say that obviously you had tried to take what you had on the first album and do something a bit more. Sometimes you're going to take it a little bit too far.
It's it's more of everything except for the song California, which is a slow acoustic thing. But yeah, it's more of everything, really. There's John coming over there. He's gonna get a beer. He's in a creative mood.
Obviously.
I don't know. You probably have some listeners who are fans of Major Parkinson, and he's doing new stuff for the new album, and he's in a very creative mood right now.
Good. Another beer for everyone.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you about Teabag Your Grandma. Where'd that come from?
Well, let's see. Well, the song is, I think the title was just to be shocking. I'll be honest about that. Just to make somebody notice it, really. Just to say, oh, what the heck is this? And then they hear it oh, this is good, hopefully. But the lyrics were about sex addiction and sort of the desensitized, I can't say that word in English. Can you help it? Desensitization? No, God.
That's
hard.
Close. That's close enough.
It's enough. As close as you were with my name.
Yes.
But it was written during the advent of streaming, right? So pornography went from being magazines and VHS and all that into 2 clicks away on a computer or anything. And it was sort of about how you start out watching regular pornography, and just as it's so easily available, more and more weirder stuff, you get more and more distance from just regular sex, right? And I saw that with my nephews. And remember when I was a kid, and of course we watched pornography, but it was it was never like this. This is going someplace. This is weird. This is not good. And so it was a song about that. That was the intention, at least. I mean, I'm not sure that really comes through the lyrics. That was the intention, but when I wrote the lyrics, I sort of go on a tangent, and I like this better, but I'm not sure.
You get sort of interested by information, etc., that is now projected over the internet and through other communication systems, because the Phantom Below from the new album also sort of gets at that from a different direction.
Yeah, it does. That was inspired by a book called The Silent Revolution by an author called Mercedes Bunz, which I believe is German.
Yeah.
And it was basically like I can't remember everything about it, but the main message was that like artificial intelligence and just robots and stuff, it's not really their fault. That they shouldn't be seen as that scary because like a machine doesn't care if it works 2 hours a day or 24 hours a day. The person that decides that it works 24 hours a day and makes you lose your job is the guy owning the machine, right?
Right.
So it's sort of about that, and sort of like this technology is going to take over everything as we go along here, but we're the ones that are choosing to like not live in harmony with it. Mm-hmm. Sort of like it's basically that around there somewhere.
Of course, we don't live in harmony with each other. How can we expect to live in harmony with the machines either?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, look to yourself first before you look to others. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. Well, if the robots take over, like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I read that book.
Yeah.
So, why did it take 5 years to go from that to A Boat on the Sea?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's monetary issues. I mean, budgeting, just finding the songs for the album. It's life. I was living in Fossum, my hometown, during that period. And I moved to Kristiansand first, studying there, and then I moved to Bergen, studying here. And we were so separated, it was hard to get, like, I've been used to rehearsing with my band like 2 times a week. Now we're so spread out, like, just to give you an inclination, Bergen is about 7 hours from Fossum. And the other guys were there. Then we got the new bassist. He's in Oslo. He was actually north of Oslo. It was 12 hours for him to get to Bergen. You have to remember, Norway is an extremely long country.
Yes.
And it's we don't have fast trains either. They're wonderful, but they're very slow.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just logistics, right? And also I demoed all the songs, but I really wanted to play them with the band before we recorded them, because usually a lot of new cool stuff shows up, right? You know, you don't want to just go into a studio based on demos. That can be a little lifeless. It would sound maybe too much like me, or too much like me and Lars, because he does a lot of the keyboards.
Right.
So that's him back there. And so it was nice to just try him in a band setting, right? And that really helped the songs. But at the same time, it was hard to organize that. It's also expensive to get everybody here. We rehearsed in this space where we're now, in the other room here, where the vocalist and Major Parkin is going crazy. So basically just a mixture of life and, you know, needing to get an education or just something, because you're starting to see that streaming is not going to be the savior of the music industry as you would like it to be, not in any way. And I don't like that, but I don't have a problem with it. And then just, you know, well, I can't live off of this music, so I need to do something to sort of secure myself a little bit, you know.
Absolutely.
So I took a bachelor's, right? So that was 3 years right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did some live gigs. But yeah, so it took time. I'm very happy with the result.
Well, you should be. It is a great album, and it is a different album. You can certainly hear a significant difference between this one and the previous two. Just from my impressions, the guitars are not up front nearly so much.
No.
The titles and the language are not up in your face nearly so much. And Lars is way out there in front.
Yes, he is.
The keyboards take a very prominent position in establishing the environment.
It does. You want to say anything about that, Lars?
Go ahead, Lars.
Yeah. What do you want to know about them?
Well, first of all, you came on just for this album?
No, it was sort of what Sondre just talked about, life happening. Sondre moved to Bergen, and we sort of just started playing together naturally. And we did like a lot of demoing on basically in Sondre's apartment. And I just tagged along on the keyboards, and suddenly I was part of the band. And suddenly I was a major part of the band.
I was going to say, a major part of the band because the guitars got mixed way down, relatively speaking, and the keyboards are right up front.
Yeah, it's very easy to record a lot of synths and keyboards these days, so that's part of the reason, I guess. It fits the music.
Mm-hmm. So, did the original songs have a different sound to them in your head as opposed to when Lars then came on to add the keyboards?
Yes and no. I mean, I do play keyboards myself. I'm not nearly as good as this guy, but I will, when I demo songs, I will add keyboards to them. And not because I'm used to that, and this was before he sort of like joined really in, so I would do that automatically. So I had little themes, little things that I wanted to be there. But after a while, I really understood that I was sort of like underusing him because he's really good, and I started giving more space to it. And he also has sort of a problem when you're doing a lot of your own stuff and you're demoing it. It can be too much you. Mm-hmm. And it's very nice to have other influences. He has a very different way of playing keyboards than I have. Different way of doing chords, melodies, and all that stuff. And so when he added his stuff, I really liked where that took the songs. It gave them another, like, sort of a feeling, a dimension, or something about them, which made me like them a lot more. But so yeah, I had on some songs, I had some ideas. I put on some keyboards, but generally, I like to give him just free reins. Mm-hmm. He'll just play around, and I'll maybe say, "Oh, there's something over there," and we'll work a little bit on that. Same with the bassist. I record the bass, right? So I have little lines that I like, but generally, I like to tell him just go crazy, just do whatever you feel like. Mm-hmm. And it's never really not worked. It always ends up great, or at least in my mind, it's like, yes, this is awesome. Do that. Mm-hmm. More. So yeah. But the reason for the keyboards being so loud, I'm very happy with that decision, but it wasn't my decision really. It was the guy who mixed the album, Mike Watts, who also does The Deer Hunter.
Right.
So we went down to New York or to Port Jefferson and mixed it with him, and he was just like, "These keyboards are great. They're going up. The guitars, I don't like them too much. They're going down." and I didn't want to be like the typical guitar player, like, "Oh, my solo's too low. Let's get it higher." And I was just, this sounds good. I'm okay with it. I mean, as long as it services the song, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I try to leave I've been a solo guitarist for the majority of my life, and there's a certain ego that goes along with that, and you sort of have to learn to, like, this is not important. If it doesn't serve the song, just get it out of there, get it low.
Of course, that's where the guitarist part of you can be in conflict with the composer part of you. What are you going to serve, the guitar or the song?
I think for me, as I've recorded so much myself during the years, making demos and stuff like that, also mixing some stuff, but I think I learned relatively early on that, maybe keep the guitars down and everything else sounds better. Just swallow that pill and this does actually sound better. So I think I'm sure other people will agree with that. Like if you're just a solo guitarist and you don't know anything about recording, you go into a studio, you want to play your solo, you want to play your guitars, you want to hear them afterwards, and want them to be the focus, right? Then I think it's harder to swallow that when they mix it down. Mm-hmm. But generally, just as long as it sounds good, and I'm very happy with how it sounds. Mm-hmm. So
it's interesting because playing this for a couple of other people, they said, well, the first two albums, there's a somewhat proggy aspect to it within the metal, but now that the keyboards are more up front, there's a lot more prog feel to the whole thing.
I mean, that's what it does. So, like, when you put a lot of keyboards in there, it gets a little proggy feel. There's a lot of time signature changes. There's a lot of, like, recurring themes going on.
I was going to say, the musically, even though they're separate songs, you have certain musical themes that pop up again and again.
Yeah, there's a lot of those, both in chord usage and melodies and riffs, like sort of like foreshadowing, that's the word. Mm-hmm. Foreshadowing what's happening. The first song, Hocus Pocus, the chords there, all of those chords, the first chords are the beginning chords of Isn't It Easy, the last song. The last chords on Hocus Pocus is almost the last part of Isn't It Easy, stuff like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Also in Phantom Below, the main melody, it comes again in The Invisible King. It's on the quiet part. There's a little glockenspiel playing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big prog nerd, so but I'm not really that good at making prog. But I like to put some stuff in there.
So I assume you did some of that intentionally, put those themes in there to revisit at points.
Definitely did that.
That's his thing.
That's sort of my thing. It has become my thing, I guess. It's just sort of that's probably an influence from the prog. We're talking about influences. Definitely that aspect of it, both from classical music and from prog. The late motifs, as they call them.
Oh yes, absolutely.
That's sort of that's become a thing. I like that. I like the book opener, book closer thing of an album.
Sure. When I listened to it and went through some of the lyrics in it, it's, as I think you referred to, it's a bit more understandable. It's the metaphors are not quite as obscure. You can get the language and say, this is what he's referring to. And I guess maybe it's because the music isn't so sharp, but you don't sound quite as angry in this. It's just sort of concerning, I guess.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, maybe. I think it's because I changed my vocal style a bit. I've never been a very good vocalist. I was always told that I sort of sucked, but it just felt weird to have other people singing my songs. I tried it a couple of times, and it was just ugh. But I used to sing with a lot of belting technique, is what it's called, I've heard now, which is like the rasping thing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you come off as more angry. But then, song California, I found out, wait a minute, I can actually sing with a clean voice. That's nice, and it doesn't rip my vocal cords apart. So I started doing that more, and I got a lot better at it as I went along. So it's just more comfortable to sing as that, as well as it's easier to convey different types of emotion. I mean, if you're just singing with a belting technique, it's generally just like maybe one or two emotions you can get out of that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of it. Also, I'm older and all that. I'm not old, but I'm older. I don't have that teenage angst or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that angry at society and all that stuff, which is also sort of weird when you live in Norway, and I grew up in a very, very beautiful town. I'm going to name drop it. It's Fossen.
Mm-hmm.
Just Google Fossen. You will be amazed.
All right.
I had a very nice upbringing, so it's hard to sort of like find the anger in things, right? You can find anger in like political stuff and stuff happening in the USA, right? But I'm in Norway, so it's,
Well, can't you find anger any place? There's always something going wrong.
We got enough of ignorant people around here as well. Don't you worry about that. No matter where you go, just how it is.
So one of the recurring lyrical themes or things that you keep referring back to seems to be religion.
Yeah, that's sort of I thought about that a lot because I'm not religious per se. I'm sort of I like the idea of spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I can't describe it. I do think religion should be a very personal thing. I'm not a fan of organized religion. I come from basically what you would call the Bible Belt in Norway.
Lutheran?
Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
But the place where I grew up, it has a church, but it's not that religious, really.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people from the neighboring towns, which are where are in a very short distance, are very religious. Mm-hmm. So I've been exposed to it a lot, and I just never liked it. The whole concept of God, it just didn't seem like I've read the Bible. I've read it a bunch of times actually, and especially the Old Testament. He does not seem like a nice dude, and I didn't see why people would like this person. He just seemed not like a nice person to me. Even in like the New Testament, I think Jesus was a pretty awesome dude, I gotta say. I mean, we're a socialist democracy, and that's not the same as socialism, let's be honest here. No. But Jesus has a lot of things going for him that reminds us of the social democracy that we have in Norway. I liked him. I just wish he wouldn't have said that everything that comes before is still relevant today. Is still the truth, like the Old Testament, all that stuff. It's like, well, no, please, no. But I've had a lot of exposure to religion from an early age, and so naturally I think I made a lot of songs about it. I'm not an atheist. I wouldn't call me an atheist. That would be weird, but I'm not really sure what I am.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not, cannot attribute myself to any sort of major religion in the world. I'll definitely say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't anything specific leading up to this particular album that piqued your interest or somehow got you the wrong way.
There was one thing. Well, not really one specific thing. I remember. Oh wait, actually, there was one thing. A long time ago, I have friends who are half American. I have a lot of family in America as well. But I was visiting with them in Tennessee, and I met their sister actually, and we sort of had a little thing. And she was from a very Christian family.
Mm-hmm.
I was not Christian, and I remember her uncle sort of. I asked him, like, what do you think about me? Do you think I'm a nice guy? He's like, yeah, you're a great guy, but do you think I'm going to burn in hell? It's like, yeah, you're not religious, so, I mean, the word is there for you to find, but right now, you're going to burn in hell. And it's sort of, I couldn't see how a benevolent God would sanction that, right? You have a person who is Christian and a person who's not, who love each other, for example, and they can live their entire lives completely sinless, but the one guy isn't Christian, so he's going to hell, while the other one goes to heaven. And that just really rubbed me the wrong way. So I was thinking about making a concept album on that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the songs, it's like the song Invisible King, is sort of like I didn't do it, but I was like in the process of doing it, and some of the songs sort of carried over.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't end up as a concept album, but there's some like sort of, artifacts from that.
Mm-hmm. Invisible King, you mentioned at one point you'd written actually many years ago with somebody, but it hadn't fit into a Moron album until you got to this one.
Yeah, it's not because of like a religious thing. It's just because we had the song Down at the Disco where I sing about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And his willingness to marry me. But it was just an old song that I made with a friend of mine. He sings in another band I have called Boys of Battle, which is a power metal parody band. Very silly. But it was just that the lyrics came afterwards. The lyrics that are on the album now is not the lyrics that were on the original song. There's some similarities, but it was just it just didn't fit until now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty meticulous when it comes to putting up like the flow of albums, probably because of all the prog I've listened to. So I like that it's sequenced well together. I like listening to an album, not just songs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think a song can become better in the context of the other songs around it.
Sure. So you must read a fair amount, because you referred to the Bunz book a little while ago, reading the Bible. Hocus Pocus is related to Kurt Vonnegut.
That's right. That's right. My favorite Kurt Vonnegut book. Actually, both me and Lars back here, we work at a library, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're not educated, like we don't have a librarian education or whatever you call that, but we both work at libraries. I work in the library at a prison, high security prison. I also worked at the main library where he works.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of opportunities to read. I've always been more of like a fantasy dude growing up with Lord of the Rings and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But I read other stuff. Kurt Vonnegut is a personal favorite. Really like Hocus Pocus. That's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I try to read a lot.
And that obviously gives you some ideas here and there that you might be able to explore in music.
Yeah, from that book, Pocus, I don't remember the quote exactly. It was something about what politicians do are akin to what the B-52 bomber does. Is that you have these people piloting these things and they're dropping these bombs and they don't really see the destruction it brings. And it's sort of a parallel to politicians like passing whatever they want from lobbyists and whatever, and they don't really see the impact it has on society. It's a wonderful quote, but I should have brought it along with me, but that's where that comes from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is also great. Great book.
Also because, yeah, it's fantastic. Also because of the religious, overtones on the album. There's some of those. Hocus Pocus, of course, from the Latin, from what is it? You're a pastor, right? You should probably know. Is it hoc?
Hoc est enim corpus meum.
There you go. Yeah. So there's that part as well.
It's only been 40 years since I took Latin, so I have no idea.
Yeah. That was right, though. I've read it a couple of times. I was trying to remember it for this interview, but you got it. I did not.
I got to ask about Captain Awkward, too.
Please
because that's the song that I heard first. Yeah, I must have heard the dog song first, but Captain Awkward really jumped out at me. That is a pop song with so many different aspects to it, including a bit of Zappa, including a little bit of video game, including some mellow balladry in the middle, and yet it all works. It really works. It's great.
We're as surprised about that as anyone. We tried to make a radio edit of that song. We really tried. Yeah, exactly. Well, me and the manager, he's good at that stuff as well. We tried like editing things together, putting things out just to make it shorter for like maybe we could get some radio play. But it was just whenever you take anything out of that song, it just falls to pieces. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how I got that to work, but it just does. And it was not really. It wasn't like usually when you write a song. Sometimes it'll just fall into your lap, just from the heavens. Other times you get a little part of it, and then sometime later you get another part, and you just, these things fit together. But that song just fell out of the sky, except for one part which me and Lars did here, which is the Balkan Oompa thingy, which we made.
The video game part.
The video game part, which we made for another project that we have, and was like, well, this fits here, let's put it in there. But yeah, I don't really know what to say about that song. It just works somehow.
You said that this was another one of those songs that took years to sort of germinate and come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of demos of it, but there were some parts, like really when I say that, it's just the Oompa part, the game thing part, and the calm part, the sort of the ballady thing that wasn't there before, and it was basically done. It just needed just like a little bit of something, and then it came after a while. As well as, since the album took 5 years to make, that song has been ready for a long time as well. A lot of these songs have been ready to go.
So have you already started looking ahead at what comes next for the band?
Yes. I have no idea how we're going to do it, but it's going to be a concept album. I'm finally doing that.
Really?
Yeah. I always wanted to do one.
What's the concept?
Well, it's about a guy. I won't reveal everything, but it's about a guy who dies, goes to hell, spins a wheel of reincarnation, and is born again as a pachinko machine in Japan, Tokyo. That's the gist of it. That's the gist of it.
Oh, I like that.
I'm not sure that it can be done really yet, but so it's not like set in stone. But that's what we're going for. I have it's going to be a much longer album. It's going to probably be at least an hour, I think. I'm not really a fan of like long albums, but if it's a concept album, I think it's all right.
I was going to say, you can't be too much of a fan of long albums because of the three. The longest is about 35 minutes?
No, Defenders is 42.
Is it 42? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. This one is 32. It's really short.
Yeah, it is.
But at the same time, it's like I said, I'm a huge fan of Zappa, and his best albums are about 32 minutes long.
Yep.
And those albums include gratuitous soloing from him. At least 10 minutes of that is just him playing away on that guitar.
And who's going to tell him not to?
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually did. I actually used my recording thing to cut out a lot of his solos because I'm not a fan of. I think he's a great guitar player. I just like the songs better. Mm-hmm. It always annoys me because like his band is so good, whatever kind of band he has, and they play all this intricate stuff. But the minute he starts playing a solo, the band just plays rhythm and blues. And
yeah, that's it. Sure.
And that's just like, no, come on. If he was playing solos over like very intricate stuff, I was like, yes, this is awesome. But he does that sometimes. But a song like Montana, it's a great song, but it has this way too long solo in it. So I just cut it out and just glued it together. Like, oh, this is better for me. And I've never met another Zappa fan who agrees with me. Never. And that's fine. I don't mind. It's just that's the way I like my Zappa.
Well, and if you've got the ability to cut and paste things together your own way, who's to know?
Yeah. So, yeah. But that's like when I do like short albums. And there's also something to be said for the streaming age, right? Where if you have, say, one album that's an hour long and there's 2 songs that are 30 minutes, from a streaming royalty point of view, well, not that there's basically anything to get there anyway, you'll get a lot less. Yeah. I also like the feeling of like, leave the people wanting more, maybe. And you're like, oh, this was great. I want to listen to it again. If you listen to, say, like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, that's an undertaking. When you're done with that album, you don't feel like, oh, I'm going to put it on again. I'm like, wow, that was great. That's enough. Like any albums of Yes, like if you put on Relayer, man, when you're done with that, you need a break.
Maybe for at least a week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's maybe unconsciously I've been thinking about that maybe a little bit.
When you get this thing out this week, will you be doing any live gigs?
No. It's impossible to do. We did 2 now in the summer, like in Fossen, my hometown, and around the area there. But I got a throat infection, so we had to cancel one. Actually, in my hometown, which was really that sucked. But generally, it's just hard for us to do live gigs. Again, Norway is a very, very long country. It's hard to get people together. It's expensive just to drive on the road, and all kinds of things. You have to rent a car. You have to pay, like, I don't know what you call it, road taxes.
Yeah.
Tolls.
Mm-hmm. Tolls everywhere, and it's hard to turn a profit off doing it. And it's fine to and it's nice to play concerts for people who like your music, and I want to do that, and we want to do that. But it's also hard to justify economically, right? Because we're not rich, and we need to work to pay the bills and stuff like that. And also, we haven't had a manager until now, and so he's not been doing booking, but he's taking over that. So some stuff might be happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to play these songs, like wherever the people will want us. We would gladly be there. It's just a matter of economics, right?
Have you actually played Captain Awkward live?
I think so. Have we?
We have rehearsed with it, but we haven't.
No. Okay, so we've rehearsed it, but we haven't actually played it live. But it's no problem to play it live. It sounds good. Of course, we don't do as much, like we don't use overdubs. We like to play it as it is, and you get like more of a live feel as well.
Oh, sure.
So the harmonies on the vocals we're working a little bit on that, but it doesn't seem like it's that necessary. And you have live is one thing and the album is another. But we haven't done that. But we've done Phantom, we've done Dog Song, we've done Invisible King, Blue Skies, and I think we did Isn't It Easy once.
Yeah, I think so.
We did Isn't It Easy once. So we're able to do them. We just haven't had the chance to do them a lot just yet.
The economics of the modern rock era really sort of hit everybody, especially you guys, obviously, with the distance you've got between each other in Norway.
Yeah. It's been hard. That's sort of disingenuous. It's not really been hard because it never was easy. We grew up, or I grew up. I'm a bit younger than Lars here. I grew up with when Napster was just getting around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that there was money in music, but there wasn't really that much. So I never had the disillusion that this is gonna pay my rent, really, and it never has, and it probably never will.
Yeah.
But it's just gotten a lot worse. Streaming has made it a lot worse. I do like, as a consumer, I love streaming. It's wonderful to have all the music in the world at your fingertips. But from an economical point of view, it's not working out very well. You have the people who invest in Spotify, the owner, Daniel Ek, making millions, but it's not being redistributed through the bands, right?
No, and whether it be you guys or even bands with bigger names and reputations, they get killed too.
I mean, just take the other band we play in Major Parkinson, right? That's a much bigger band on a progressive scale. We do tour internationally and stuff like that, and it's basically a zero-sum project. It's hard to make. It costs a lot more to record that kind of music because it's a bit more, it's a bit more demanding. But
Sure.
still, there's not a lot of money in it, and we're 7 people in that band. I mean, try to get a band going that plays prog. That's 7 people, and you're gonna make enough like a living wage for all those 7 people. Even if you toured like 200 days a week, it might work, but you'd have to forgo your family and whatever. You can't. It's hard to keep that stuff up as well. So, but I've never had a problem with that. I mean, it's because it never was anything. There was never any other options. It's just you do it for the sake of the music and because you want to do it, not because you want to get rich.
Yeah.
And if you do it because you want to get rich, you're probably not in the right business, or the music you make is probably not going to be that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most likely.
So for people who are wanting to get the music starting on the 16th, for those folks who want to get a hard copy of it, go to Bandcamp, or where should they go?
Well, we're not doing any hard copies yet
Okay.
because of the economics,
Yeah.
the economics. But we're thinking about doing a crowdfunding because we really want to do at least a vinyl of it because the cover art is so beautiful, and I just really want people to have that. So we're looking into that, and I think we're going to make that happen, but I don't know in time frame for it. Hopefully not far from the release, but maybe
But if people buy it on Bandcamp, we can.
Yeah, that's the thing. If people actually buy it digitally from Bandcamp, that helps us immensely because that will go directly to fueling a vinyl production of it.
Right.
We don't take this money and go out drinking or whatever. We keep it in the band. So we're hoping to be able to do a vinyl for it, definitely. We all like vinyl a lot, so CD might be possible as well, but I think vinyl is the priority right now.
Yeah.
Just because it's bigger and nicer.
And the market for that actually has been increasing in the last few years, too.
Definitely. I mean, we've seen increased sales. We have vinyls of the first and the second album, and those have been doing pretty okay. We still have a lot of them. My parents, my parents are pretty sick of having all those boxes of vinyls. But
that's what parents are for.
That's what they're for. They have to live with that. They made me. This is what they get.
That's right. You get lots of vinyl to hold back in the garage or someplace.
Yeah, that's basically what happens. Me and the drummer talked about we're never going to sell these vinyls. We're going to be buried in a casket made of these vinyls
Exactly.
when we're dead.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. I hope we get rid of them at some point, but not holding my breath for that.
Well, I appreciate your time very much.
Yeah, it was very nice to talk to you. It was great.
Sondre Skollevoll is the leader of Moron Police. Their new album, A Boat on the Sea, is out on August 16th. I'm Mark Boardman for the latest music news, reviews, and interviews. Check out our website at sonicperspectives.com. And as we leave, here's a cut from the album, my favorite. It's Captain Awkward.
Everybody knows it. I don't care if you go out. If you make that movie, man, I don't wanna be hide now from phantoms down below. You think you're helpless and alone, but I'll stay a while. But you feel frozen, your heart has turned to stone. As you ride the undertow, I'll see you home.